From the Bent Pixel Studios in suburban Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Phone Booth Fighting, a twice-weekly, absolutely free podcast, courtesy of that guy, the two-time UFC heavyweight champion.
Hello.
And current Bellator heavyweight contender Frank Mir, and myself, the two-time funniest comedian in Reno, as voted by the Reno News and Review, Richard Hunter. Good to be with you. Our guest in studio, Frank. It's always fun when we have an in-studio guest. Let's say hello to the Cuban Missile Crisis, Julian Marquez, UFC middleweight. Julian, thanks for coming on, man. How are you?
Thank you guys for having me.
Good,
awesome.
Man. Good. Lean on into that microphone.
Hey, are you full-blooded?
No, I'm half.
Oh,
my dad.
Oh, same here. My father's from Havana.
Yeah, my family's from Pinar del Rio. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, they smuggled over here in like the early 70s, like 72.
My dad came over in the 60s on a plane.
In the 60s on a plane?
Yeah.
Yeah, beat the Bay of Pigs and everything.
Yeah.
Was there ever thought of being Julian Bay of Pigs Marquez?
No, it just wasn't as cool.
Yeah.
People would just be like, oh, that dude's just a hungry guy. He's a fat little dude. Nah.
At least the Cuban Missile Crisis is kind of a cool story.
Yeah.
The Bay of Pigs, obviously, you being a student of history.
It didn't work out well.
Yeah, not such a cool story. Kind of a big-time fuck over.
Yeah.
It's rough. The Cuban Missile Crisis is awesome. There's a lot of, well, I shouldn't say it's awesome, but there's a lot of things that went into it, and it's a huge part of our history because if it would have went wrong in many different ways, we probably won't be here.
That's right. That's right.
So.
Would it mean anything to you if I start doing my Nikita Khrushchev impersonation and start banging my shoe on the table? Does everybody remember that when he got confronted with the satellite photos? That's what started the Cuban Missile Crisis.
The missiles.
The missile
stuff?
silos. Yeah,
from Turkey.
Yeah,
I know exactly.
Adlai Stevenson, who had unsuccessfully run twice against Dwight Eisenhower for president, was I guess he was the UN ambassador at that point. So they had the photos and everything, and they're confronting the Russians with it. And there's famous footage of him like banging his shoe on the table in frustration because obviously they'd been caught, but he didn't want to admit to that. So yeah. Let's give a little love to a couple of sponsors here real quick before we get into our conversation. First of all, you know them if you're a regular listener to Phone Booth Fighting, Low T Nation, lowtnation.com. They're so popular, they're so big, they've got a nation of their own, Low T Nation. What you do if you're a male, if you're maybe getting past your 30s, maybe you're up into your 40s, even further into your 50s, you're slowing down, you're losing a step, you don't have quite the energy and the definition you used to have, then lowtnation.com is a worthwhile click for you. You go to the website, you call the toll-free number, you get a free telephone consultation from a couple of good Phone Booth Fighting listeners who run the operation over there at Low T Nation, and then that's when they set you up with a local clinic in your area, a little bit of blood work done to make sure you're a candidate, and for more on the convenience that takes place after that, here's Frank Mir.
Yeah, once you get the blood drawn, the physicians can figure out exactly what you need and how much. It's sent directly to your house every day, or excuse me, once a month consistently. That way you don't have no issues about taking your shots. You don't have to worry about missed appointments. You don't have to worry about traveling. It's to your front door, man. Couldn't be any easier.
That's right. So go to lowtnation.com, call that toll-free number, find out if you're a candidate. They're based in the South, but that part doesn't matter because they can hook you up with a clinic anywhere across America. And, of course, I always say that week after week, month after month, we're hearing from more and more Phone Booth Fighting listeners who have benefited from the lowtnation.com way. So log on today, lowtnation.com, and let them know that Phone Booth Fighting sent you. We are also brought to you by my buddy Dave Ellefson, EllefsonCoffeeCo.com. If you are a fan of coffee, check. And if you are a fan of hard metal, check. Then Ellefson Coffee Company is for you because, of course, the proprietor over there at Ellefson Coffee Company is none other than legendary Megadeth bassist Dave Ellefson. He's got himself a coffee company, and if you go to EllefsonCoffeeCo.com, use the promo code PhoneBooth, that's going to save you 10% off of your entire order. Doesn't matter how much you order, you're going to benefit 10% just by being an MMA-loving metalhead like me. EllefsonCoffeeCo.com is the website, ELLEFSON, and let them know that Phone Booth Fighting sent you. All right. Julian is in studio with us now. Julian, I saw you fight live Friday night in a split decision that I will tell you, and Frank will verify this. I'm not just saying this because you were here. I had you winning. You probably felt the same way too, but always one of those things that's a little tough when it goes to decision. So what were your thoughts?
Man, it sucks. No matter what, no matter how you look at it, I could sit there and tell you 1,000 times, like, yeah, I felt like I won. I felt like I was going after every inch to the finish. I just came up short. And then 3 people decided, my fate. One person was all with me. The other 2 were kind of with me, kind of not.
Yeah, the scores were a little – that's always the tough thing with the split – and this was a split decision, by the way. But it's tough because I looked at the scorecards, and it's one thing when, you can see 29-28 and there's one round where people were different, but it wasn't like that.
No, all rounds. One person had it all for me. Yeah. And then one person gave me round 2, and then the other person gave me round 3. And it is what it is. Like, I can't really go back and change it. All I can do is just let it motivate me for the next. I'm going to fall forward on this one. That's what my main goal is, because it sucks when you go to a decision at any point in time, because you leave your fate within 3 people and they see things differently. I don't know how each person judges, and it just didn't go in my favor, and it sucks.
Yeah, you fought Alessio Di Chirico. I had to learn to say his name that night. Italian fella. I'm sure that surprises you after I tell you his name, Chirico. But you got your start in the UFC, and I was at this one too, actually, the Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, which is a pretty cool way for guys now to get into the UFC. In the old days, the only way, unless you were already a known commodity out there, was the Ultimate Fighter. Now they got Tuesday Night Contender Series. I mean, I think it's for people who are a little more seasoned professionals, but it's that way you get a good look, and then it's a one-night tryout, I guess, and then you get the contract. So I know that went well for you.
No, yeah, for sure. I think the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series is awesome, because the problem is, like, there's so many promotions out there and there's so many fighters today, and that show actually gives people reinsurance to let them know, like, hey, you're actually, like, Dana knows who you are. These people, Mick, Sean Shelby, they know who you are, and they're going to give you an opportunity to fight on their show for the potential to get a contract. Whereas, like, way before, it was, like the Ultimate Fighter, like you said, everybody would come out, you have a tryout, and then they'll take, 16 people? Is that how many people was in the bracket? Or 12 people? Or
sometimes you do 32, and they'd all fight to get in the house. Sometimes
I think it's 16 when they've already got them selected. But yeah, about that.
So it's like you have all these deals, and it's like if you don't get in, you're just like, oh, and then you have to figure out a different way on the comeback. And this is just a little bit more of an easier way to find the people out, which was awesome. Like, it's how I got discovered. The tough people in the gym that you go and train all the time, you're like, man, how come this guy doesn't have a chance? They actually are the people that are on the show. A lot of people have been taking a lot of short notice fights to help fill the card, because a lot of accidents happen. A lot of people get injured. We're fighters. So, there's people that show up on this Contender Series that you have no clue about, and the next thing you know, they just shine out. And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think another thing too, Frank, because if you think about it over the years with Ultimate Fighter, first of all, you've got to keep track of all those different people in one clip, because you've got them all in front of you as a viewer. Then the other thing is too, especially the fights getting into the house, all those fights don't get shown. So you might have actually tried out, and even if you got selected, your entire fight may not have shown. They may have just shown it as a highlight clip. I kind of like this concept, because even if you don't get the contract, you get on Fight Pass, you get on a high-profile stage, and you've got a fight. I mean, there's guys that win and don't get contracts, but even if you're in a competitive fight, you've got a pretty good resource there to even use as a demo tape if you're, booking yourself on regional shows. I would think that would elevate your appeal.
100%. I mean, even, going back and having to reroute yourself out to make it to other big events, if bouncing down to the smaller shows, that criteria of having that, UFC in the background is definitely going to up your value.
No, 100%. And what's cool about it too, man, is if you've ever gone to any of those shows, or if you fought inside the Tough Gym, man, it's insane. You can actually feel everything as a fighter and as a spectator. Like, you can almost feel the wind coming off of a kick that's missed, or you can actually feel their slam when they take them down. Like, everything's more in your face, whereas like when we go to UFC events or we go to these bigger events where there's a lot of people, it's kind of hard to actually get into it because of the crowd, or not really into it. You're just far away, but no matter where you're at in that Tough Gym, you're right up on the cage. So
that's true. Being at those live, and you coached a season, Frank. You probably maybe thought this, but it's the dichotomy of being in a gym setting where a professional fight is taking place is really different. I mean, especially like you said, Julian, if you're used to attending the big events, because when you're in a gym, just your subconscious thinks sparring. Even if you're seeing hard sparring, you're still seeing sparring. We're not going to go to Syndicate tomorrow and see somebody, with their professional record on the line in the cage, going for a win or a loss.
I always thought that was actually a good thing for guys too. It's kind of intermediate because most people at the level that you are already being considered for that, fighting is not what really makes you nervous, but it's hard to prepare for all the oohs and ahs of walking out in front of 15,000 people.
Yeah.
So I think that fighting there, you're still fighting in a UFC event, but you're only fighting in front of 60 people. I think it takes away that element that sometimes locks people up. I mean, how many times have you seen guys have debuts, they go to the big show, and all of a sudden it's like, well, it's because it's UFC. I'm like, it's because there's 15,000 people surrounding the cage.
Oh, yeah.
It's overwhelming. And sometimes people, like, you get shell-shocked. It's like, I tell people all the time, it's like, hey, man, you probably said the Pledge of Allegiance your whole fucking life. But if in the middle of a fucking basketball game or a fucking baseball game with a full stadium, I walked you down and said, all right, go, buddy. You're like, holy shit,
Oh, I can testify to that. My first fight in the UFC, like when I went out there, oh man, I lost I won the fight, but like I lost my adrenaline, I lost my cool. Like I was just I couldn't stop dancing, I couldn't stop moving, because you're about to you've been planning your whole entire life to be in this situation, and then you walk down this aisle where you don't see anybody, and all of a sudden they remove the curtain, and then you have an entire stadium or an entire arena just filled with people about to watch you and another person perform, and it's hard. Pretty thrilling.
I've had 30 fights now. I still can't get that part of my heart rate to calm down. Like, I'm calm in the dressing room. I'm calm walking into staging. The minute they open up the curtain, if you had a heart monitor on me, I'm like, fuck. Heart rate's fucking at like 145. I'm just sitting there like this. God damn it, Until I can get to the cage. That's why, like, you'll see me sometimes. I'm looking at the cage because that's my centering piece. I'm like, all right, I'm used to that. Oh, that's one way of doing it.
Is that your phone?
No, that's. I think someone hit the doorbell.
Do we have a doorbell?
I guess we do. We just found out.
We had a doorbell. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. This is going to be a little producing on the air, which is fine. I'm going to get up and go answer the door.
Well, it's Mike, probably.
Okay, yeah, we think that's Mike Perry. So I'm going to go answer the door, and Frank will now take the reins, and it'll be
we'll just go on to it.
Cuban podcast.
So that's my centering of knowing that. Like, it's like anything else. I mean, how many times have you competed against just one guy? So I always tell people, like, hey, man, as soon as you can, just focus on the guy you're fighting. Because if you start looking out into the crowd and you start looking at everybody around you, that can be very overwhelming. It's just so much energy. And, like, how many times are you going to practice that? You can't train that. Where you're fighting somebody, you've been training for hours and days and weeks and, of time put into that aspect of your game.
100%. So, like, this last fight, it was at the Pearl. And I was expecting, like before I walked out, I was sitting there by that curtain, and I literally sat down cross-legged, Indian style, just sitting there closing my eyes and just taking deep breaths just to calm me out, because I thought it was going to be a long walk. The moment they called my name, it was literally, I just turned the corner and I was like already there. So it didn't give me that time to like really soak it in. Then you get in the cage, and once you're in the cage, you kind of just like black everything out.
Once you're in the cage, I think you hit your autopilot where it's like, all right, now I'm fighting somebody. This is normal. It's that walkout that just, that long walk. That's why actually, what I thought was horrible was I remember one time I was up in Canada watching, it was when, who was fighting? I think it was, I know Randy fought his last fight against Machida, and GSP was fighting.
Was it in Montreal or
I
Winnipeg?
think so. I think it was Montreal. I just remember it just being it was like a 35,000, stadium, and we're sitting there. I was like, wow, the fucking seats, man, it's so fucking far away. And the thought that hit me was like, oh, fuck, that's a long walk to the cage. I'm all, note to self, I don't ever want to fucking fight here, because now a 90-second, maybe 2-minute walk is turning into a fucking 8-minute walk. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I can handle it. I'll be fucking gassed out by the time I hit the fucking stairs, crawling up. Like, what's he doing, the Anderson? I'm like, no, he can't walk.
You know what's funny about that is when you came out for the Fedor fight, our buddy Butch Bradley was watching it, and I talked to him afterward, and he goes, you must sell it well in terms of if your heart's pounding, you don't show it, because he said when you came out, he goes, Frank is walking to the cage looking like he's just trying to remember where he parked. Like he's kind of like, I know I parked around here somewhere. Yeah, so he actually took it the opposite.
You know what, though? That's important of not showing your cards.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes, man kind of works from the outside in. So if I'm nervous about something, I try to actually control my breathing and my composure, because then I know that it'll actually start controlling me on a subconscious level. Your body will go back and forth that way. Just like, as stupid as it sounds, like if you're in a bad fucking mood, start smiling. And for whatever reason, it fucking starts cheering. You know what I mean? Like, I might look like a fucking psycho, but it actually can try to. It's weird how so that's why I look like such a poker face, is because I'm trying to turn the inside of me to look exactly what the outside looks like.
Yeah. Hone in on all your energy and make sure it's
because heavyweight, I have a finite amount of fuel in the tank. If I burn it all out, we're gonna be screwed.
Yeah, it'd be a rough night now for sure.
Yeah. Now, Julian, you have you permanently moved to Las Vegas?
Yeah, I've lived here for a little over 2 years now.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
So I've done everything here, and man, it's kind of wild. This is a different city. I lived in Kansas City, Missouri, so it's everything was home. I knew where everything was at. I could walk to the gas station. I wasn't gonna fry my entire body walking 20 feet.
Right.
It was humid. Coming out here is just so dry and it's so weird. So it took a while to actually get acclimated to like the weather, the people. But now being here for 2 years, I feel like I'm at home. Like I don't like going anywhere else.
You trained with Eastman for a little while too, right?
Yeah, I trained with Marvin.
Yeah. I like Marvin. Off and on throughout the years, I've always trained with Marvin. I have a funny story. It kind of has to do with Marvin, but I remember one time, I talk about fighters and confidence, and it has to kind of do with, when you say, oh, you would never guess that, right? I told you that sometimes Vitor Belfort at his heyday was probably one of the most dangerous guys when he was on, right?
Yeah.
But one of the guys that had the least amount of confidence in himself was Vitor Belfort. It was the most amazing contradiction of like, dude, you're like a fucking world-class athlete. Black belt jiu-jitsu, fucking high-level boxer. How can you be so nervous before a fight? So we're sharing a locker room together, because this was back still when I had a primarily Brazilian corner. And so we're all in there and everybody's speaking Portuguese and talking, and I'm just kind of like minding my own business sitting down. Well, Vitor comes and sits next to me, right? And now, mind you, we're fighting in about 2 hours. Like the prelims have already started. He and I are on the main card. And he's like, hey, so you've trained with Marvin? I'm like, yeah, Marvin, yeah. I've sparred him many a times, and that's the guy that he's about to fight. And so he goes, oh, and now I know what he's about to ask me. I thought I knew he was about to ask me. He wants inside tips. So I'm about to tell him, like, hey, man, that's not cool. You know what I mean? Like, without, he's right before a fight. I'm not going to, like, hey, you're a fucking asshole for asking me this shit. I'm just like, hey, I'd rather not, say anything. Like, yes, I train with him. I'm not about to tell you, does he have a bad knee, or his shoulder's off, or is he going to murder you? Like I would rather just, the fight world's small. I don't want to be involved in that kind of, I'm cool with you. I'm cool with Marvin. I want to continue to be cool with everybody. Let's not, it just sounds dirty. So as I'm getting ready to say that, he just looks at me and goes, do you think I could win? And I'm like shocked for a second, like I'm looking at him, and then like I'm looking around, like, is anybody else hearing this? I'm like, and then I'm like, okay, dude, you're fucking with me, right? I'm like, I look at him, and I can see the look in his eyes. He's not fucking with me. I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say to him. I never had a fighter walk up to me before a fight and go, hey, man, do you think I can pull this off? I'm like,
a couple hours before the fight, this is what he asked.
No, fights were already going on. Like, I was already taped up. I'm like looking at him. I'm like, oh shit. Like, I understand being nervous, but holy shit. Like, to the point I'm like looking at him like, whenever I'm stunned and I don't know what to say, I usually just don't say nothing. I just I give you that blank stare. I'm just trying to, the wheels are turning. I'm like, are you fucking with me? Or is this serious? Or like, how do I address this? And he goes out and wins. And like he threw one blitz and fucking scalped fucking Marvin's skull open. You know what I mean? I'm like, and so if you saw the fight, you're like, oh, this guy's a fucking killer. I'm all, if you would have talked to him in the locker room, you wouldn't have thought so.
Wow. Dude, that's one thing that I have to do. I'm not saying I'm like the same way, but I have to see a mental coach. I have to talk to someone about my mentality, because you know that saying, like, when you leave the gym, no matter what you say about yourself, you're right. Right. So when you have a bad day, or like someone gets in with a punch, you think you got beat up, but yet you were destroying the whole entire thing, but all you can focus on is that one bad punch that got through, or that one submission.
A lot of athletes are that way. That's what makes us good athletes.
It is. So it's I have to deal with a mental coach to get me to constantly like switch my mind, because it changes variously throughout the entire camp. Like, one moment I'll be sitting there just like I'm the king of the world. The next moment I feel like I'm nobody. And that's why I talk to him every week, just to remind myself, like, man, they're just thoughts.
Do you ever think it just goes in waves? Because I noticed that, like, okay, the day of the fight, or usually the night before, it comes in waves. I'll have a 5-10 minute fucking period where I'm sitting there and all of a sudden my adrenaline dumps. I'm nervous. I'm like, fuck, man, what am I got myself into? And then all of a sudden, like, I peak out on my nervousness, and then all of a sudden comes back to, I'm like, oh, well, I could do this, I could do that, and then confidence comes back. I always say it's like the demons calling, you know what I mean? Like those naysayers in your mindset. Usually for me, what I do is I just focus on what I can control. I'm like, look, man, winning and losing is uncontrollable. You'll drive yourself insane trying to control that.
Oh, 100%.
What I try to control is just my performance. So I just sit there and go, okay, I'm going to throw a jab. His most common 3 elements, he's going to respond, A, B, and C, and I know what I'm going to do. When I go and change levels, he has his A, B, and C defenses. I go and I just start routing out, and I just kind of hide my mind or focus it on something constructive, I guess.
Yeah. My battle isn't in the fight. Like, when I'm in there,
no, I don't think anybody's is.
The day, like the couple of days before. Oh man,
that's what I'm talking about. That's where the waves come in. That's why actually I've cornered guys and I've told people, don't put this guy into a fight. And people understand, and I've actually had to explain that to people. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, the guy you're fighting, he'll fight you, and he's a fucking specimen. But he's questioning himself right now. Make it a slow-paced fight. Slow it down. Slow the fight down. And you'll beat him. You'll outscore him, because he's going to second think him. He's going to overthink the situation. But a guy who's overthinking this, like, for example, like Ngannou this last weekend. If I was in the corner of
Derek Lewis,
I wouldn't have told him to attack him too hard. I thought Derek Lewis, actually, that's a good game plan. Beat his legs up a little bit, barely beat him. Because Ngannou's still a very gifted athlete, very powerful output. If he would have jumped on him and put him in a war, all the mental shit that Ngannou was going through his head, that would have been out the fucking window. Yeah. So the worst thing you can do when you see a guy who's struggling with himself, don't back him into a corner, because every dog, no matter how feeble it is, if you back it into a corner, it's going to bite back. So if you see that guy who's questioning himself, it's like, oh, you're kind of questioning whether you should be here or not. Well, I'm going to beat you, but I'm not going to call out your manhood. I'm not going to get the giant to wake up. You know what I mean? I'm going to let it go and stay asleep, peck you away, and then by the time you go in the locker room, you'll be like, fuck, I was in a fight. I never turned on. Perfect, because you don't want, like I said, Ngannou was like a sleeping giant.
Yeah,
he was so frozen mentally because of his fucking Stipe bullshit. But I guarantee you, had
Ngannou?
Lewis, thank you, Derek. If Derek would jumped on his ass and put him in a fucking war, dropped him and got back up, all of a sudden Ngannou wouldn't have had the fucking mental issues he was having. He would have went into autopilot, and he would have been the fighter that he normally is, and he just would have started fucking fighting back.
That's a good assessment. Like, I never really thought of it like that. You know, we all know how to fight.
Yeah, if you push it,
it's all psychological,
it's autopilot
too.
Yeah.
It's all psychological. Yeah, it could have been a good game plan, because I was confused of why. When I was watching it live, I was confused, like, well, what happened in that fight? Because, you know, it looked like Derek Lewis was trying to go through, but they were literally in each other's ranges to where whoever threw the jab out was going to land, and no one was pulling the trigger.
Well, you had one guy, Ngannou, who was having mental fucking issues. He didn't want to throw first in fear of being taken down, because he felt what that felt like to be on the bottom of another heavyweight, and he didn't want to be on the bottom of, I'm sure, of Derek. And then you had Derek. I don't think Derek had mental issues. I think Derek had physical issues. I think physically he couldn't explode the way he wanted to. His back was so trashed, which in hindsight probably helped him win the fight. As stupid as that sounds, had he had a healthy back and he threw a ferocious right hand and it didn't sleep Ngannou the first time, it probably would have woke Ngannou's ass up. He probably would have been like, well, fuck this. Yeah. And fucking he would have thrown a lot more than 15 fucking punches in the whole fight.
Oh, no, for sure. I thought after reading his Francis's explanation, it makes so much sense. I thought Francis got scared after the first kick he threw, and then Derek Lewis actually countered with it. If you watched, Derek Lewis landed a flush right hand and actually wobbled, or it looked like it wobbled or caught him off balance, and Francis fell back towards the cage. Derek Lewis pressured in, and then that's when everything went back to slow space.
Yeah. I saw the exchange and throughout the whole fight. I mean, honestly, I think I watched the first round, and I didn't watch rounds 2 and 3, but through fast. Yeah, I sped through it.
Yeah,
because I already knew the conclusion, so I was like, "Fuck, I can't watch this."
Made the fight more exciting that way.
It made Ngannou look like he could dance really well. but I assumed it also too was just I thought Francis was just mentally fried from Stipe. I mean, even afterwards, I saw John Wood in the gym, and we're sitting there, and right off the bat, I'm like, he goes, fuck yes, he goes, and John even said, he goes, and we had no clue. He goes, he had probably the best camp I've ever had a heavyweight go through. Every day came in, felt good, fucking people up. Hey, how do you feel today? I feel great. There wasn't a day he came in where it was like, I'm not feeling good. He goes, his wrestling was awesome. He goes, dude, he's developed a really fucking sick double leg takedown, which he adds that to his repertoire of striking. Now it's, there's one more element to be scared of. They're like, he's fucking running people over. I'm like, wow. And they're like, so we had no indications that we had to sit there and go, okay, the last fight was the last fight. You've improved. Let's get over it. We didn't know he was still carrying that with him until all of a sudden, he goes, he goes, it was between the second and third round. John was saying, dude, we're losing. Can you at least just let your hands go? I'm not even, I guess the point where it's I'm not even asking you to win the fight. I'm just asking you not to look stupid.
To perform.
You know what I mean? Just at this point, let's not lose the fight because you didn't even throw a punch. Let's at least fucking go down with something,
Yeah, that's why I think having a mental coach is definitely, it's a must because you will clam up in situations like that. I mean, he just fought for the world title against Stipe, and he hit him with everything he had. He couldn't put out Stipe like he normally has been taking people out, and then Stipe took him down and held him on the ground for the entirety of their fight. And I can see him again like that, being afraid. So it's it's one of those things. Now I have to talk to for me personally, I have to talk to my psychological coach, my mental coach, so that I can go back in and be like, hey man, Julian, yes, it's a rough loss because I didn't feel like I lost, but I still lost. But still, to me, I'm always going to look at it like, hey, man, I have a loss on my record. And I never fight to win or lose. I fight to perform and to show my capabilities. And there's a lot of things in this fight that I wasn't able to show through certain things. For instance, the first round, I tore my lat muscle off of my bone. So I have to get surgery next week to fix it. So I went through this whole fight trying to do stuff that my body wasn't allowing me to. So it's mentally it messed me up. But
and fighting, our sport, I think, is the most mentally tough sport that I can think of for multiple factors. One is that I always tell people, here's the thing that drives people insane. People feel, and we're kind of trained this throughout, even through our schooling, right? Hey, work hard, do the work, and it'll pay off. And fighting, that's not true, right? No. I've trained with people that have done everything fucking right and walked out there and got fucking slept in 16 seconds. I've trained with people that showed up at the gym twice in an 8-week period, were on, I don't know how they fucking passed the drug test, and I'm not talking about PEDs, you know what I mean? And fucking won the fight in 16 seconds, you know what I mean? Obviously there's a more percentage and you'll be more consistent if you train hard and you put in smart work much more than, more often than not. but people still go nuts about that guarantee. And I think somehow as humans, we have an illusion in our everyday life, like, well, if I eat right and I exercise, I probably won't have a heart attack. I'm like, there's people that have heart attacks all the fucking time, and it's a smaller percentage. There's vegans out there that die of heart attacks in their 40s, in their 30s, just like shit happens. You know what I mean? Like, now, is it a smaller percentage? Yeah. But is there a guarantee? No. And I think that's what drives fighters insane, because we actually have to face that truth of the reality of the world, that there is no certainty. There is no guarantee. And then on top of that, you compound the fact with, it's like, all right, so you fucked up today. It's like, all right, it's the NFL. It's like, oh, you fucked up on Sunday. All right, we got next Sunday. You can erase all those fucking highlight reels if you're getting your ass kicked off of ESPN. It's like, when's the next time you get to erase it? Like, maybe 4 months from now if I'm lucky. 3 if I get a quick turnaround. Like, it might be 8 months before I'm going to have 8 months of this is the last performance I've had. So every time you go out there, it's the fucking Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like,
every time. And it's tough, man, to sit there and just constantly let the thought of what you could have done Monday morning quarterback yourself, the best way to say it, in your fight. And you always see good things, but even if in the good things, you always see the bad things, and you're constantly playing it. But that's what actually makes us better as fighters, is that we break down ourselves. We start focusing on things that we need to do. But man, I'll tell you what, you need an escape, because if you don't stop thinking about that, you'll eat yourself alive.
Oh yeah, for sure. We've by the way, we've got Platinum Mike Perry here on the On Deck Circle. He's in the green room right now. So we
he helped us discover that we actually have a fucking doorbell.
I know, he's the first person that ever rang the doorbell. We didn't even know there was one here.
That's awesome.
I was like, is that your new ringtone, friend?
Yeah,
yeah. Boy, a merit badge for him on politeness there, just ringing the doorbell. So he'll be joining us here momentarily. But you mentioned that that lat surgery you're going to have to do, Julian, because actually when I saw you after the fight, he had the right arm in the sling, so we had to do the awkward left-handed handshake. Yeah. What? How long does that put you out of training? What's the story there?
I talked to the surgeon Monday. He was out of town. I went to L.A. to speak with Kavitny, and he looked it up, and he's the one who informed me that it's not a rotator or labrum. It was actually I pulled the meat off the bone, kind of like if you grab a chicken wing and you like rip it up and you see that flab of meat. That's pretty much how he explained it to me. So they said that this isn't coming from the surgeon that's doing it. It's coming from another surgeon. He said that it'll take 3 months of rehab, followed by another month where I can actually start slowly getting into training. And then by month 6, I can start being in the gym and like accepting a fight. So maybe it'd take 9 months, 7 months.
Yeah.
But having the Performance Institute like here and being able to live here and having the rehab and being able to do that multiple times a day, hopefully it would speed up the process. But
you have access to some of the best shit.
Oh yeah, you'll be able to do it at the Performance Institute. Well, if we're looking for silver linings here, I can only think of one. Julian, that's going to give you plenty of time to podcast. You should come back on with us and let's do some more.
Yeah. I'm 100% in. I like your guys' studio.
Thanks,
I might have to add a couple to your collection.
Sure. If you have something for the shelf, bring something up.
I'm a collector, so I have a lot of stuff to put in there.
Okay, I'll tell you what, next time how about we do Julian Marquez show and tell?
There we
you
go.
Just bring a few, because we're obviously a video medium. People can watch on YouTube, and you can show off some of your collection.
I love it. I love it.
That's cool. Hey, man, tell everybody how they can follow you on social media and stuff, keep up with you.
You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. All my handles are J Marquez MMA. I'm always posting fun stuff, different challenges, different questions. So, yeah, just give me a follow. We'll interact, and we'll do some challenges.
Yeah, cool, man. By the way, Julian is looking for his glasses. So if you happen to end up in his rental car,
in my Enterprise car,
in his Enterprise rental car in the next few days, and you find a pair of glasses in there, they may be Julian's. He came in and he was on the phone with Enterprise trying to find them, and I told him, I said, man, if your eyesight's anything like mine, geez, Frank can tell you how bad my eyesight is. In fact, here's my problem. Actually, I'll tie this to training. Is like I wear contacts if I'm not wearing glasses, right? So if I'm doing any kind of actual sparring, I'll take contacts out. But the problem is, if I don't have contacts in, like Frank's face would be blurry to me. And so
you could walk into a room and he doesn't know. He sees a body.
Yeah.
I've had people like I had to explain to people like, Richard. I'm like, Richard couldn't even tell it was you, dude.
Yeah.
He might not be like if you committed a crime that they'd be like, so is he white, black, Hispanic? You'd be like, fuck, it was a blur, dude. Like I'm like, really that bad? Like that bad?
So in the gym, it'll be like I'm not saying hi to somebody. It's not because I'm not trying to be friendly. It's like I literally don't recognize that's you. I got to get up right against you to see it's you.
That's good. I mean, if you ever get questioned for anything, I didn't have my contacts in.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
I guess you could use it to your advantage, cold shoulder people.
Yeah, true. Well, it's been awesome having you in, man. Let's get you back in again soon. You're local and a lot of fun chatting. So we'll show and tell next time.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right. The Cuban Missile Crisis. Julian Marquez has been our guest here on Phone Booth Fighting. Joining us in studio now, Frank, is Platinum Mike Perry, fresh off a victory over Paul Felder. A fight, Mike, that I got to witness in person. And I tell you what, that was the people's fight that night. That was a good fight.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it was competitive. I mean, there was a split decision. It was back and forth. It was bloody. It had a lot of drama to it. And it was one of those fights that sometimes when injuries happen and things get moved around, because there was a domino effect with this fight, because our buddy James Vick was supposed to fight Felder, and next week, I think, and then he ended up getting matched up against Justin Gaethje, so he got pulled out of that fight. So Felder gets left without an opponent. He takes the fight with Mike and actually moves up to welterweight for the fight. And I could tell even when
because you had a fight scheduled too, though, didn't you? Didn't someone pull out on you?
Yeah, Yancy Medeiros was supposed to be my original opponent.
Right, because you were already getting ready for a fight too.
Pulled out a week out.
Yeah.
So I thought somebody would pick it up. I was sure somebody would take a paycheck.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't look like there was a size difference.
No, it didn't. So. I mean, not when you guys faced off. Yeah, you pointed that out too at the face-offs too. You're like, I don't see a size difference here, right?
But I feel like I knew I was more solid.
Yeah.
Like I'm more dense.
Mm-hmm.
He made 55. I don't know if he can make it anymore because, I mean, he looked like he was pretty big. So,
yeah.
But he was a little faster than me, though. So maybe that was the visual difference, that he was a little smaller and I was like more solid on the ground. I took his shots pretty well. It didn't move me very much. And when I hit him gently, he kind of flew every time. So... he was so tough, man. He could take the shot. Yeah. He got cut open, and when I got on top, I even tried to drop him on his head, like he's got to be rocked now. And I get on top in a good position. I even got a couple shots off, but he just kept scooting and stood right up. Didn't have the top control. I want to go get my black belt so I could feel a little more knowledge of that top pressure.
Well, and that's improved a lot since moving to Albuquerque. You've become much more well-rounded instead of just somebody that someone has to worry about. All right, if we're gonna fight, Perry, let's not box with him. He fucking might knock us the fuck out, but let's wrestle him for a little while, take him down, and try him out there. And you showed improvements there.
Yeah, good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Didn't know you'd be watching my fights like that, man. That's pretty cool, though. So. Even more so in the future, I think I need to shoot more single leg takedowns, more pickups and slams, better dumps, practice the finishes. Once I get them up in the air like that, I can do that more often. And
well, you have the athletic ability. It's just the mindset of adding the technique to it. So, just do it. And I think if you look at guys that can shoot well on top of being dangerous strikers, they're fucking nightmares to deal with, because it's like, all right, if he changes levels, are you going to shoot on me, or are you going to fucking hit me with an uppercut? You know what I mean? Like, and it just, now you're a multi-pronged weapon. You know what I mean?
Frank mentioned the move to Albuquerque. Now, for those who don't know, you're now training with Jackson Wink, and I actually asked you about that in the post-fight press conference, about what that transition had been like for you. And just to follow up on that point, Mike, a lot of fighters, when they make these kind of camp moves, going into it, there's reasons for it and that sort of thing, but sometimes the results vary from good to bad to mixed. Obviously, this has been a good move for you. So, being on the other side of it, when you look back on everything that you've learned or experienced since training with Jackson Wink, what do you think really paid off in the fight?
Well, it all felt pretty new. Going out, it was a different nervous feeling than usual because I had only had 2 months with a system that wasn't necessarily mine or one that I had been working ever. So 2 months new, I felt like fresh fish going in the UFC octagon. I was like, oh man, I know this guy's pretty experienced. So, but I went out there and that actually kept my reactions tip-top shape. It kept me moving really fast because I was worried and didn't want to get hit a certain way. So, speaking of the camp switch, I want to do it again, but even with a different team. Like, I want to go see the champ, T. Woodley, and his team, which is, Duke Rufus? The guys that I just kind of fought against?
Yeah, right.
I talked to the champ about it before the fight, and we know it went down, but, Cowboy was even going to take the fight, and I had been training with him at Jackson Wink. It makes sense that two guys who put in work together, punch each other in the face hard, and practice, the death dance without getting paid could get paid. To do it in front of everybody if they really are that good, the best, or, can put on a show better than everybody else.
Do you know that, and that it's interesting you bring that up about Woodley, because I asked him back, if you remember a few years ago when he was still at ATT, and it was Woodley, Lawler, and Lombard were all there at ATT at the same time, and they were all like right there at the top of the welterweight division. I mean, ATT was kind of had a problem where it's like, man, our fighters are all right there and they're going to be matched up against each other with title shots. And I remember Woodley actually said that, hey, you know what, if we get matched up against each other, he said not only would he fight those guys, but they could all train together. He's like, we don't care. We'll just train together and still do the fights. Now, it didn't actually end up happening, and then guys end up moving to other places. But that was kind of interesting when they said that. I mean, that's kind of a, that's an old school mentality too. When you think about it. I mean,
in
it's
boxing,
like,
they say that.
Yeah.
If you're my friend, you'll fight me because you're helping me get paid.
Yeah.
My only counter to that I've ever noticed is that sometimes when people fight, fighters, we get it because, I mean, you think about it, you're training with your friends all the time in the gym. I've choked my friends way more than I've ever choked anybody I didn't like.
Right.
I've hit my friends way more than I've ever hit anybody I didn't like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just the way that it works. You know what I mean? You're training with guys that you're friends with. You go eat lunch afterwards, you chill. Is that when you fight each other, you guys get over it. It's like, fuck, fighting's fighting. But I noticed the people around you, it's like the girlfriends, the wives, the buddies and shit, like they seem to fucking be awkward. Like it'll be like that awkward moment where I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It seems like it's the people that aren't fighters that are involved in the situation. They don't know how to deal with two guys that are friends fighting each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that. Moms and cousins and aunties and uncles.
Right.
Everybody all of a sudden doesn't like your friend. So
yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
That's what it's getting to these days. Yeah. I'm starting to fight the guys that I actually kind of like.
Yeah.
The top of the division. Those are guys that are decent athletes.
Right. That's the direction you want to be headed. Yeah. I was going to say, too, if you follow Mike on Instagram, I don't know what was more impressive, his hard-fought victory over Paul Felder or getting the nose stitched up after the fight, because the doctor gives him 2 injections, right? And he goes, okay, here's the first one. This is a small needle. And he shoots him with it, no reaction or whatever. And then he pulls out this big one. And he's like, all right, here's the big one. I'm sorry in advance. This is going to be awful. Shoots him up with it. doesn't even flinch.
I hate it though.
I'll bet it sucked.
Your face is full of adrenaline. You probably know.
Yeah.
You know, take a couple
I hate
punches.
the cuts here though, because now every time I get punched in the nose,
Yeah.
the scar tissue here, like what you're gonna have now, it's never the same anymore. It's gonna cut there all the fucking time, dude. I'm letting you know now. Like the one knee I took against Brandon Vera gouged me, and like every fight, I always get stitches here. If I got Alistair Overeem fight, get stitches in my nose. Like it's the same scar tissued area.
Yeah.
That if I take a hard shot there, especially like a knee or an elbow that has no padding on it, it just rips my fucking nose open.
We were throwing knees and elbows. He got me in the rib a little bit with one of them knees. So,
that sucks too.
we were throwing, man. I don't know. Have you heard about his arm? He broke his arm.
No, I didn't know.
I did hear something about that.
Maybe
yeah.
spinning back fisting.
Well, I think
me.
afterwards,
Yeah.
yesterday, you were talking about that.
Yeah.
It came out that he had a broken.
Yeah.
And he spinning back fist me, I guess, caught me coming in, and maybe that did a little. I know I slammed him on it. So,
I think spinning back knuckles sometimes for that reason can be dangerous.
Yeah.
How many? Paige Van Zandt broke her arm the same way, right?
Yeah.
You spin around and you hit somebody and they put their arm up, or even if you hit them on the head, if you don't hit them somewhere vital, back of the ear, it's like it doesn't matter, and your arm's just kind of like it's like almost like getting a stick and slamming it around a pole.
And you're also, if you think
That's a
about
lot
it,
of energy.
You think about it too, you're momentarily losing sight of your target. So you don't know which way they're going to move. I mean, by the time you spin around, you don't know exactly where they're going to be, which means you don't know exactly where your fist lands.
I think it's a kamikaze. It's kind of one of those, it's a Hail Mary shot, If it lands, I mean, you could be the fucking welterweight champ of the world.
Yeah.
but they got systems with it. The way that these kickboxing camps are working, and they're spinning, throwing hook kicks, and the combination never stops. I was working it over there. I even threw a couple. Maybe one spin in the fight, spin an elbow, and I wasn't as good at it. I'm more like solid feet planted boxing, and I was trying to even land on the back of his head during some of the spins, but like his shoulder was blocking by pushing my arm with his back, and that's the thing with MMA though. It's all these styles.
I like spin elbows because I think those are sneaky and in close because you're spinning on somebody who's close to you. John does those a lot, spins, catches you, and I think he was the first guy I saw make that popular. I just think the spinning back knuckle is kind of dangerous because it's a long distance weapon, so people have more time to react. You're exposing your back, and I don't know. I feel like it's either hit or miss. It's like either great reward or great risk.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Mike, about when you came into the UFC, because I have told this story on the show before. That was your fight against Lynn, and you got that fight on short notice, if I recall. Wasn't there I think maybe you were a replacement opponent for him, something like that. And I was covering that fight, and I remember at Media Day, Frank's heard me tell the story a million times, but at Media Day, they always have the fighters set up around the room kind of in a circle, and Cowboy Cerrone's sitting next to you, and he was either in the main or the co-main or something. I mean, big throng of reporters around him and everything. Well, here's Mike Perry, who got this fight on short notice, and he's sitting there, there's nobody's talking to him. So I go over and I talk to you, and I knew you were undefeated. I mean, I just knew some basic facts, but I'd never talked to you or heard you speak before. And I walked away from that interview, and I told Frank this. I said, you did that interview like you were supposed to be there. I mean, you were ready for that interview, like when the switch flipped on. And it was important because it's like what you're doing is you're talking from a standpoint not maybe of currently where you are, but where you intend to be. There was no, I'm just fortunate to be here or anything like that. You were basically telling me what was going to happen, where you were going in that fight and then what you had planned after that. Was that something that, even though you got that fight on short notice, mentally you were just already prepared for?
I just knew that I was going to have more than I had ever had, no matter what the outcome was in that fight. So I was totally relaxed. There wasn't a nerve in my body. I was so excited to be there. And, oh man, that's a good memory. I remember that feeling. It was different than any other because the dreams that I had that I was thinking of back then, I was thinking a lot smaller than I'm thinking now. after almost 2 years in the UFC and 8 fights, I'm thinking, I'm still thinking big, but there's a lot more work involved now.
Yes.
I thought it was going to be a little faster.
Yeah. Well, and then that brings us to the point where you change the camps, because it's great if a fighter can come into the on a big stage undefeated and lots of knockouts and all that. But the downside of it is, if you've gotten used to that feeling, being able to feel like you can beat the world, then sometimes when you take the next level up, some people don't make that transition well, because they're like, wait a second, when I was in the smaller show, I was knocking everybody out and everything. So you obviously had the self-awareness to go, okay, well, now I've gotten this far. Now, maybe I need to try different camps. Like when you go to Jackson Wink, like you're talking about now, even trying training with other people. Was that a tough Was that a tough realization for you? Or again, sort of like we were talking about with that interview, did you just kind of always have the self-awareness to go, okay, now it's time to start focusing on, like you said, a lot more work involved? What's the next level?
I always wanted to do the travel and train, go to different gyms. I just never did. There were things, rent and stuff like that. I was like, if I'm paying rent somewhere, I'm living there then. So I didn't change where I was staying. I was in the same gym all the time. Nothing against them. Nothing against Jackson Wink when I go to another one. And I always thought, why not walk into gyms with a camera and someone filming and spar with their best guys. Skip everything else. I'll just sign a little waiver, and we'll just have some fights. Sell the videos.
To your point, you were saying about people who, I don't even know if it's so much of coming from a small show to a big show and running into problems. I think most people, or you'll see people that have a lot of success, I think your first 5 fights, first round knockouts.
Something like that.
Right?
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they first run into that first obstacle, you'll see how they're going to react. And you're right, you reacted properly, but I think the best example, like I think it'll be the proverbial, like, here's the tale to watch when it comes out, is Ronda Rousey. There's somebody who had phenomenal amount of success, steamrolled everybody. She ran into a stumbling block, stumbled again, but even after the first stumbling block, didn't change her trainers, kept with the same program, said, well, it got me where I was. That was just a fluke in her mind. Had even worse disastrous results in her second fight. And just, you and as a journalist can probably attest better than most, she just doesn't want to accept it, like mentally cannot, to the point where I think it ruined her career.
Yeah,
I think Ronda could still probably come back and be a champion had she actually defeated herself.
Yeah, I think sometimes there is a stigma associated with, if you're changing camps, that's like you acknowledging the last one didn't work. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's just, I need to learn new stuff. And I'll give you an example. You became known much more as a striker in the latter part of your career. You could have just been the, forever the heavyweight submission specialist. But when you started boxing, when you started, you went on that run of knocking people out like Bigfoot and Duffy and all that, then all of a sudden, not only did it create a new chapter, but people started going, well, now we got to worry, just like you were talking about Mike at the beginning of the show, the opposite. Now you don't just worry about him knocking you out, you got to worry about him wrestling you and stuff like that.
Well, and that's why I like that was a good mindset that you have, and you sit there and go, well, I get a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I appreciate that you think that way, because you know how many people, it drives me nuts when they sit there and they're good at one facet of the sport. Like, you got great hands, right? Your hands are probably not going to get too much better than what they are. You can improve, but that's a great foundation of what you have already, right? But you'll hear guys be like, well, you got to learn jiu-jitsu. It's like, and there's like a mindset that, like, well, just because you're good at something, you're not going to be able to be good at the other things. I'm like, wait a minute, but if you got good at one aspect of the sport, why can't you, unless it's physical attributes that are holding you back, you can't get proficient at the other aspects of it too? Everybody has preferences. It's just like, and I always use boxing as a great example. That's the most similar style of fighting you could probably say. Everybody has to fight almost the same way. Can only hit with your hands, can only hit with the knuckles, all hit to the same area. And look how many different styles within that you have because of preferences of bodies, but everybody can box. Everybody still has the same. Everybody knows how to throw a hook. Some guys have better hooks than others. That's why sometimes I'm glad in MMA it's gone that way now. Back when I trained, it was like if you were a jiu-jitsu guy, you stayed a jiu-jitsu guy. If you were a boxer, it's like, well, you're a boxer. We'll just learn how to sprawl and brawl. Like, if you're a wrestler, you just learn ground and pound. There was no stepping out of your lane to become well-rounded, where now guys like yourself are like, just because I just need to go to the right camp, learn the shit, and if I apply it, it's going to work for me.
When I wrote down on my paperwork the first time for what Bruce Buffer was going to say when I walked out, or when I was standing there waiting to fight, was my fighting style was drunken boxer, because you know what I mean. I knew I was trying to punch him in the face, but I knew that I could stop takedowns. I could get him if I needed to. I could pull some submissions, and it's just little shots here and there that add to the flavor of the drink. You know what I mean? So. I can drown some people in there, and I tried to drown Paul Felder in his own blood.
Yeah, came close. I tell you what's nice about fights like that too is obviously, you continue to move up the ranks, but when you see a fight like that delivers, you think in the back of your mind, at least I do, man, it's not going to be the worst day if these two ever run into each other again. Like as a fan, that's going to be a good one to watch. And there's a few fights like that. I think if fighters are lucky enough to have those kind of careers where even if it's not an immediate rematch type of situation, you know what I mean? You just kind of file it away and you go, hey, maybe at some point we run into each other again. That's probably going to deliver.
That's fine with me.
Well, that, and I think there's no losers.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, there's a winner and a loser, but when you have a great fight, it's like the guy that wins obviously is on a higher trajectory, but when you have a great fight, the guy that loses is just on a less of a trajectory, but he didn't take a step backwards. Whereas the same note, you see a fucking awful fight, the guy that wins takes a step back, and the guy that loses takes the 5 steps back. You know what I mean? Like, winning and losing is not always everything in our world.
Yeah.
I got 3 decision losses, and I gained respect.
That's how you fight.
I didn't go backwards,
Right.
So that is all that matters, and I'm sure Paul will be back. I already told him, rest up and beat the next guy. So
yeah. Now, so the plan right now is you may be a little nomadic. You may skip around and try out some different camps, stuff like that. Is that kind of what you're thinking? You mentioned Rufus Sport.
Yeah, because the champ is there, and I like that guy. So I don't think he would mind me coming and getting like a little camp in with him.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. I got to go back to Florida first. I got a little family reunion coming up this weekend in Texas. Then when I get back to Florida, I got to fix my little car. And there's already some news in the air, though. So.
Oh, you may have your next fight?
Yeah.
What can you tell us?
I can tell you it would be this year.
Okay. All right. That's good.
Well, I think moving up the Rufus camp would be awesome for you. They're great strikers on top of being well-rounded in MMA, but, they focus more on that aspect of it. Plus, Pettis still works up there too, right?
Yeah,
Would be a good guy to fight.
Pettis. I liked Pettis' attitude all week. Every time he saw me, he knew I was fighting his boy Paul, so he was like looking at me all crazy. He wouldn't say nothing. He would just stare at me. I was like, dang, man, all right, I get it. I'm fighting your boy. It's cool.
Yeah.
I was a fan of Pettis, man.
Yeah.
Back on the Wheaties box.
Well, he'd probably have a different reaction to you if you don't have the Felder fight in front of you. He'd probably be happy to see you up there, yeah. Cool. Well, this is giving you a chance to travel around a little bit and see stuff. Like, do you? It seems like it's you're at a point in life where you said at the beginning that you knew it was going to give you so much more than you already had and stuff like that. Are you really it seems like you could really enjoy this chance to, like you said, do a lot of traveling and stuff like that, and all that.
Yeah. I've talked about motorhome, but I don't think that's the way to do it. I just fly around, and I was gonna look at property out here in Vegas because of the PI.
Yeah,
and then I want to continue working with Frank Lester from Jackson Wink. I was doing a lot of mitts with him, so really that's important. That was the biggest change in my camp, was all the mitts I was doing with Frank. So that made me a lot better, and I got to continue that. So I got to find a way to do it. But first I got to go back to Florida so I can go to Volcano Bay. I got like the season pass to this awesome water park. And it's so fun.
Oh, Volcano Bay. I like a good water park. I think they're fun because it's like a roller coaster, but you're not enclosed in a seat. You know what I mean? Like you're just free form. Anybody ever see your big ass barreling down a water slides?
Let's go to Wet n Wild one time together. I'll show you what I do. I just did it when I was up in Atlantis.
Yeah,
with this rides, because I actually bridge when I go through the rides. So because my kids are always down first.
Yeah.
So I know that I can. I'm so heavy.
Yeah.
So I just make sure that the only thing touching the bottom of the slide is my heels and like the back of my shoulders and my head. I pick my hips up off the mat, off the slide. So it's very little surface area touching, and like I fucking fly down that thing. I think my kids get a kick out of it because when I hit the water, it's a spectacle.
Where is Volcano Bay? Is that like in Orlando?
It's Orlando area off of International Drive, around there somewhere. I've been a couple of times, but it's definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go like every day for like a week.
There you go. I'm going
to overdo it. Sure.
Why not?
How close is it? I always would think that if you told me we're going to open up a water park in Florida, I'd like, it's not going to work. The fucking beach is for free. It's right there. Pay the toll, you know what I mean? But if it works, it works. Water park here in Vegas makes the most sense. It's like, where the fuck are you going to get water from? You got to drive 4 hours to fucking LA.
Yeah.
I've seen people go to Lake Mead out here in Vegas.
Oh, that's true, yeah. Boating in Lake Mead's cool. Swimming in Lake Mead, not so much.
Yeah.
You need $100,000 for a boat.
There's going to be friends with people who have boats.
Yeah.
Or be friends.
Yeah, just get that season pass to Volcano Bay. It's a lot more economical.
Yeah.
That sounds fun, man. I'd like to hit that water park. You know what? I just thought about this because we're planning our trip to Cal Jam again this year for October. But my girlfriend and I go to this music festival that the Foo Fighters play at. And they do it at a campground that has a water park on it, right? So the whole time we were there, my girlfriend was like, I'm going to be really excited if I see Dave Grohl, And so we went to the water slide, and she went in the bathroom, right? There's always kind of like a long line for the women's bathroom. So she's in the bathroom. I'm waiting in line for the water slide, and while she's in line for the bathroom, here comes Dave Grohl up the stairs to the water slide, got up on the water slide with me, and rode the water slide down with me. And as we get to the bottom, she comes out of the bathroom to see him driving off, and she's like, what was that? What just happened? I go, it was the craziest thing. While you were in the bathroom, Dave Grohl just showed up out of nowhere and rode a water slide with me.
See, when I tell you sometimes honesty is not the best policy, that was one of those moments, buddy.
Yeah, see, Frank knows better than me because he's been married for a long time.
Yeah, sometimes there's good lies. I really do firmly believe that, buddy.
Yeah, girls, if we go somewhere, don't tell me that you are waiting to see Dave Grohl or some other dude.
Yeah,
I don't care about you seeing any other guys. You should only talk about me.
You're right, Mike. See, there you served her right, didn't it? Here I had it backward. You straightened that out for me, man. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to go home and tell her that right now. Yeah, serves you right. Yeah. Hey, Mike.
Last thing, because I've had such a long career, I'm always curious how people deal with this because I've dealt with it in different ways. You had to change up your corner for the last fight, right? Mm-hmm. How'd that conversation go when you tell people they can't be?
There were people already thinking that the last one in Orlando was their last one, and it was easy. It was no big deal. They understood, you know what I mean?
That's important. That means
they were my first team ever. So it was a lot of wrestling and boxing. It was real close quarters. Not a lot of long distance kickers. Or there was just somebody that was too big, you know what I mean? So, and it didn't make sense. It doesn't work that way. If they're too big, they're too slow. Yeah. I need a guy my size who's tall and is fast.
Or smaller. So, actually, that's the one thing that even John Wood today, I was training, there was only the next biggest guy was a light heavyweight in the gym today. He was like, I'm sorry, man, there's nobody big here today. I'm like, and that's only been the first week of me training there with John. I'm like, I don't like training with heavyweights. I very rarely do. That's how I got good at jiu-jitsu. I didn't train with other heavyweights because they suck. The average heavyweight is dangerous because they're big and they hit hard, but that doesn't really translate over into the gym because you're wearing thick gloves. So as far as skill training, I think it's always better to train with people that are smaller and faster than you. Because that's, to me, is a pain in the ass. Because you can't sit there and just drop the guy. It's not over with. You're still going 5 minutes. Even if I hurt you, we're going to take a break and we're going back at it again. So it's the power factor is not an advantage in a training camp. Speed is the advantage. So might as well work with people that are faster than you so you're always at a deficit and you're having to catch up,
Yeah,
and when they're smaller, there's smaller gaps.
Yeah, it's all around more difficult.
Little guys, it's hard to get their jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, you get a guy like me, honestly, if I don't know what I'm doing, it's easier to pin me down because look how broad my shoulders are. It's a big fucking lever. You sit on it. You get a guy that's tiny, like even trying to hold a girl down sometimes. I've dealt with that. Within context. In the gym and training. That sounded kind of rapey, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah, we want to isolate that clip.
Yeah. But, flexible, tight, it's like fucking trying to hold on to a bar of soap, you know what I mean? They're small and they're fucking tiny,
Well, you got to be more precise with your technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure having you up, man. Thanks for coming in the studio, hanging out with us.
Been a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to meet legend Frank Mears.
Oh, thanks, man.
It's good to see you too.
Good to see you too again, Mike.
That's that Burkade. That's what they do in Albuquerque.
What is it?
Just slap and dab like jiu-jitsu.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
that's how we always start practices.
Every handshake.
Yeah,
boom.
see, he did that to me, and then I thought, wait a second, I fell into a trap because now he's going to shoot on me. Yeah.
Are we rolling?
No, that's awesome, man. Well, I'll tell you what, do this. I know you can't say what the fight is going to be yet, but maybe when you do get that fight, maybe we get that TV screen behind you, we can get people on Skype or FaceTime or whatever. So if you're not in town, maybe could you come back on with us and talk about the next fight?
Yeah, I could do that.
All right,
definitely,
cool.
Man. We'll get I'll get you contacts.
All right, let's do it. We'll have a great time out there. That week-long Volcano Bay experience. I'm kind of jealous of that. That actually sounds really good to me.
Take a lot of sunblock.
Oh, I got to lather it on every 10 minutes. You kidding me? This vampire skin?
It'd be like the beginning of you remember the old RoboCop movie where they did like a commercial at the beginning, like it was like it was part of the movie.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, take this blue 3000 now that we've lost our ozone layer, and the girl's out sunbathing, but she has like blue paint on her.
Oh yeah,
that's your level of sunblock.
Yeah, you do not want to see me
He'll
without
be out there with a rash guard.
Yeah,
for sure.
Full rash guard, full spats, everything. Yeah. All right. Mike Perry, Platinum Mike Perry has been our guest here on Phone Booth Fighting.